Hello, I'm Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. You have come across the least SEO podcast on the planet. I think every week I do try to make myself a liar about that. Anyway, you be the judge. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 22 of Confessions of an SEO. Today's episode is called, What's Canonical Got to Do with It? A la Tina Turner. Now, some of you know my true passion in SEO is a particular form of problem solving. I call it forensic SEO. I've got a course on it, and I'll be updating it with the helpful content diagnostics as I develop them. So if you're interested in getting notified when the training is opening up, you can sign up at forensicseotraining.com. It's an unsecured version of that, so don't put the S in there because it's just a domain redirect that takes you over to the real page. Now, what I see is everyone and their brother are chasing after that one thing, the hack, to get to the top of page one and not be an advertisement. So I'm going to do that F sharp, G flat thing for non-musicians. These two notes are the same black key on the piano. That's the joke about it, but there's a variety of ways for that to be notated. But at least on the piano, it's like how you come onto it. Now, the same thing I'm going to compare the blinders approach to, I only want to learn things that get me to the top of page one. And my view is, why not tease out why you're not already there? Now, the logic being that either you don't have what the others have, or you have things that are weighing you down, and they're of a nature that you'll never get there without either shedding them or balancing them out so whatever it is not so heavy and playing against you. Logical, right? So this week, I exposed a fracture in the canonical system, specifically, the attribution. I'll explain what that is, okay? But I just need to give you, that's just kind of like the scope, okay? Now, for those that don't know what a canonical is, it's a technical thing on a website. There are times when one single page on a domain will have multiple URLs essentially to that same content. Now, this is part of my forensic course because most of the time when I've had to sort of unfetter a site from page 3, 80% of the time it's because there are multiple URLs going to the same page content. Not intentionally, quite by accident, but in doing so, nothing was provided to Google to give them a clue as to which one of those URLs was the one that needed to be considered the primary URL so that all the others were shuffled like a card deck, underneath it with that the one page version on top. So what I'm saying broke is that the thing that system that would take the clue and then shuffle all those things so that the one captured all of the good juice. There were sticky little things like data. And when looking at a combination of sites and their behaviors, it provided evidence that the canonical system, which is the name given to the system that understands which URL is the one, it provided evidence that system wasn't getting it. So, for instance, all the other URLs to the same page were getting treated like they were an adult and not a child of the one. And so they were off developing their own set of search phrases, clicks, so forth from search results, and very often outranking that main page. So, at least in the data. So if the canonical attribution, how they know which one is the one, the credit of all those little URLs wasn't getting deposited into the main page of the one. Then it could very much explain why, if those credits weren't getting attributed to that main page, that it could explain why helpful content might have tagged them as unhelpful content. And which likely, by doing so, tilted the amount of unhelpful content of that site just literally over the edge of the cliff. And at that time, the site felt very strongly and without any kind of doubt the negative aspects of having what I guess Google nerds would call too much unhelpful content. Or as I would say, yikes, that's duplicate content. And duplicate content was never a good thing. But it appears in a helpful content patrolled search results, duplicate content can be a killer. And I wrote all of this evidence up, so you don't have to take notes or God, please don't take notes. Or you can get your own copy is what I'm trying to say. And it's on Gumroad. I've set it to a name your own price. It took weeks and close to 80 hours all told to get from the what the to, okay, now I need to run this through Grammarly. So if you can't afford anything, please accept it as my gift. And if you can afford to grab, put a fair price on it and accept my thanks for your generosity. It will go into paying for tools to do more analysis. So like I said, I have it on Gumroad, and you can go to the page using, it's a URL. It's, me, I do like to insert a little bit of humor into these serious things. But if you go to http:// and then all one word, fixthedamncanonical.com. Now, I just checked. If you use that phrase, fix the damn canonical, as a search phrase, you'll see some Twitter posts. One of them is mine, along with some other folks. I published on Friday a link to the initial video. And if you go to YouTube, it's on the Forensic SEO channel. And there's a video plus 2 companion videos with reassess where we talked about other types of pages where the canonicals are getting out of whack as well. It's not just table of contents. Plus, we talked about what to do if you're desperately trying to regain traction in search results. And again, all of this is good stuff for people who want to know why their site tanked after the September helpful content update in 2023. That was the last standalone helpful content update. And those same sites then got clobbered again by the recent March core, which now we're told the helpful content is now baked into that core cake. The write-ups are really, I think I do them because it's what I would have liked someone to do when I was getting into SEO. Meaty deals, putting things in plain language. So I wasn't having to infer the issue. There was no assumption that I really understood the implications. When you hear someone say something emphatically and they're trying to tell you something really important, but you can't figure out what it was from the words they used. You knew it was English, but you had no clue on what connected them all together. Now, on this topic of, the canonical attribution, people seem to want to argue. That's fine, whatever. But I find mostly what we argue for is our limitations. And I think this is partially why, we are in an unregulated industry. So we don't really have almost like a set of training and of documents that we all learned from. So I wanted to be able to put something out there and do my part to make it less about whatever someone's opinion is and much more about what is the data showing and how do we talk about data? How do we show data? So anyway, like I said, someone argue about the part in that data that showed something was up with the Canonical. And there were sites that used extensive quantities of those same page links. Another name for them are jump links or fragment links. I put all this in the write-up. So all of this is mentioned. You don't have to remember anything I say here. In a format specifically called the table of contents. I think we all know what they are when we see them or when we experience them. It's like a table of contents that you would have in a printed book. But when you want to read a specific section on the computer, instead of scrolling down like a manic person, we click on the words and magically we drop down to the section of the page where we wanted to read first. It's a shortcut. And I know trying to describe what they look like with audio only is like trying to describe a color. We do that a lot, don't we? Well, that's why getting the write-up sort of shortcuts this part. But if you know what a URL looks like, it would be something like domain.com/this-page/. Okay, that's a regular URL. Now, if that was my page and I had 1 million words on that page, I would put something at the top like Chapter 1, Intro. Chapter 2, How to Make $1 Million. I bet more often than not, people would skip the intro and click on that section that says How to Make $1 Million. Well, that link that you would click would look just like that page URL, except after that last slash at the end, there would be a little hashtag and then some words that kind of like are all together. And that whole thing, that URL plus that little section at the end, technically, that's a separate link to that same page. So in the sites that were decimated in the fall helpful content update, they had a special pattern. In the spring 2023, when looking at these sites as a whole in Search Console, it showed that there were considerable more items called impressions. Now, impressions are like the beginning of, introduction of your content into SERPs. You get impressions for various queries. And the more impressions you have, the more queries you have, gives you more chances for people to see your content. And if they see your content, then clicks should go up. I'll say more about that later. And all of those would be search phrases related to that page or to that portion of the page. And they did what I refer to as it kind of bloomed, something coming to life, lifting its face to the sun. So out of nowhere, without anyone making a lot of changes, a lot of site owners saw that we were ranking for more terms and thought, wow, I've done it. I'm giving Google exactly what they wanted, and now I'm being rewarded. But the weird part was it didn't result in a lot more clicks than usual. So impression growth without that penultimate expectation of it ending with more clicks and possibilities to convert those additional visitors into additional dollars. That was the weird part. All right, now getting back to the write-up. These write-ups, they're an outgrowth of my SEO testing group days, when we would write up our tests, detail the setup and the data and our conclusions, and show them to other testers and take questions. Most of the time, if there was an alternative explanation, a tester was encouraged to account for that alternative and come up with a new test protocol to confirm or deny that other possibility, narrow things down. But this write-up is specifically what we would have called a field observation. And I think of it as that, okay? But I think of it also that it's a blueprint as a diagnostic for how to determine if catastrophic traffic and revenue losses, all right, if you lost your shirt with the helpful content update coming out and killing you last September, if that was caused by the intersection of a broken canonical attribution system, remember that's accurately flowing all the good, juicy credit for all those pages that were the other URLs that are just like the one that you want Google to see. All right, so it's that set of cards all stacked up together so Google knows which one they're supposed to credit. So if you have a broken one of those and a helpful content system zealously cleaning up what they think are low quality pages, that could explain why everything went to hell in a handbasket. Now, all of this only makes sense if you realize that I did figure out what the helpful content targets, and that's not a name your own price guide. It's also on Gumroad. You can search for it. You can search Decoding Google Helpful Content System, or you can click the link in the description. Now, taken together, the guide and the write-up, you will have a more than solid understanding of what you're dealing with, even if you didn't suffer from the table of contents issue, broken canonical issue, because let me just tell you, helpful content is an equal opportunity destroyer of other types of content that Google targets and will tag as unhelpful. But I use a different term in the guide. And not for nothing, that Google leak that came out last week described exactly what I had described in the helpful content guide. And it has to do with topical boundaries of a domain and comparing all the pages on a domain against what boundary Google had assigned to that domain. I don't know about you, but that pretty much spells it out what a helpful content classifier system might be doing. So get it while the price is good. Now, next week, I will be speaking about all of this at the Entity Elevation Summit in Kelowna, British Columbia, and there are streaming tickets available. You can get a conference one or individual presentations. I, of course, will be speaking about the helpful content system, what it is, how to go through my diagnostic approach. I think the price is under $100 per presentation. And if you purchase a streaming ticket, honestly, whether it's for the entire conference or if it's just for my presentation, I'll make sure to add in a 30-day complimentary subscription to the Crawl or No Crawl report, which now I may just be ready to christen the Alexandria report. If you read the Google leak document, that's the name that Google refers to when they're talking about the indexation system. I can see the t-shirts now. Well, that's it for me this week. Next week's episode will be the initial Confessions of an SEO Mountain Edition 2024. Who knows what I'm going to talk about? If you want to stay on the cutting edge of indexing, check out Crawl or No Crawl on Substack. And again, if you have a site that's been hit by the helpful content system, reach out to me at confessions@americanwaymedia.com, or just add this Gmail to your search console and reach out to me. And the Gmail is helpfulcontentsystem@gmail.com. I told you it's going to be humor injected. Thank you for being a listener. If you have questions or topic ideas, I want to hear from you, and you can text Confessions at 512-222-3132. Thanks again. And until next week, I'll see you in the SERPs.